Venom is directed by Ruben Fleischer and stars Tom Hardy as the titular character, and is about reporter Eddie Brock, who is down on his luck after being fired for trying to take down a corrupt businessman, but after an inside tip he breaks into a facility run by said businessman where he becomes synthesized with a symbiote known as Venom. Now, a little history: this film was officially announced around March 2017, making this a super fast turnaround for a film, and after the abysmal interpretation present in the now infamous Spider-Man 3, fans of the character have been clamouring for a Venom movie, and here Sony were in association with Marvel Studios promising an R-rated Venom movie starring Tom freaking Hardy as the lead. With Deadpool and Logan being smash hits, everyone was excited, but over the last few months fear has crept in. The trailers were very lackluster and showed a little too much. Last month, Venom was officially declared as a PG-13 film, and Tom Hardy himself in the last few days has come out saying that his favourite 40 minutes of the footage has been cut. So from the hype earlier last year, we now have a fan base expecting the film to be a god-awful mess, and many will expect this to be branded the worst film ever. Unfortunately, it's just not. Yes, this film is a mess, but it certainly isn't another Suicide Squad or Slender Man. No, this film is a textbook example of a studio getting cold feet and playing it safe. They want this to be a franchise, but for some reason decided that instead of jumping in the deep end of the pool and risking it all, they are simply dipping their toe into the shallows to test the water, and this is what fails this film. I have a gut feeling that because of the critical backlash this is getting, it's going to be another one of those fan versus critic scenarios, like with Batman vs Superman. There is stuff to like in this film, believe it or not. For starters, once Venom himself shows up, this film becomes very enjoyable. The dialogue exchanges between Eddie and Venom are sharp, witty, and memorable. They do have a lot of comedic moments with these exchanges, which may put off a few people, but for myself personally, this was an entertaining aspect of the film. Think of the Enemy memes from a couple of years ago, and that is effectively the relationship between Eddie and Venom. And I won't be surprised to see a meme trend come of this. Hearing this altered version of Tom Hardy's voice portraying Venom brings out the best moments. The film uses very little visual representation, and half of it is just hearing his voice talk to Eddie, especially at the beginning where Eddie is not sure what's going on. Eddie would just be sitting around, and then suddenly you hear Venom shout something like "hungry," which always leads to a priceless reaction by Tom Hardy. As for the action, there is a really good chase scene, which again features entertaining dialogue, as well as an impressive use of Venom's abilities, making this chase sequence one of the more original of its kind, which is really good considering that we get a chase scene in every single superhero film. Also, the exchanges between Eddie and Anne, who is played by Michelle Williams, are believable. Definitely not the strongest of romances ever, but I buy that they love each other, which is more than I can say for some of the on-screen couples I have seen over the last couple of years. Also, there is a post-credit scene, and that post-credit scene, despite the film's flaws, actually got me hyped for a sequel. Now sadly, outside of Eddie and Venom working together, it's a mess. I don't think this is a terrible movie, but their exchanges are what made this enjoyable to watch. To start off with, this film takes way too long to get Venom into it, which I appreciate tends to be done in a lot of origin movies, but this was definitely one of the poorest executions. The first 15 to 20 minutes tries to build the characters and the world, but what they get told in that time could have easily fit within 5 minutes. Then out of nowhere, we get a notification that 6 months have now passed, which quite frankly opens up some massive plot holes. Take that piece out of the film, and we might just have a better sense of pace, because this film did not know how to pace itself. And even after that, we get dragged through needless, pointless scenes, and are introduced to some red shirt characters. Considering 40 minutes of the best stuff had been cut out, according to Hardy, I can't help but wonder if this was an accident and they were supposed to actually cut out 40 minutes of the stuff that did make it in, because up until Venom makes his miraculous introduction, the film really is a drag to get through. And the corrupt businessman villain we have seen in every film ever is, as you can imagine, just a means to an end in order to tell the story, and is very poorly written. There's also a character called Dan, who is literally a generic nice guy, and is simply there to give exposition and further plot through decisions that honestly make no sense in the context he is making in this film. In fact, there are a number of stupid and forgettable characters in this. But away from that, let's talk about the R rating. I don't see why they had to downgrade it, because there are very few occasions where it would have been present, but when those moments do show up, each and every one of them would have been more impactful had they been a hard R. Example, one character complains that another is bleeding all over the floor. No blood is present on the floor or on that particular character. There are moments where people are being dismembered, and these are very quick moments, which would have worked much better with, I don't know, a blood splatter or a cut that someone had to cover their eyes or something. But instead, the camera cuts away from these crucial moments, leaving us to wonder what could have been. Also, while I appreciate Tom Hardy can freak out without any F-bombs, they could have dropped a few F-bombs here and there, as the situation perfectly justifies it. I'm not saying that the R rating will have fixed the film in terms of pacing or storytelling problems, but without these small doses of what people wanted, it means that all the bad points just stick out more. Unsurprisingly, Tom Hardy is heads and shoulders above the rest when it comes to the performances. Just hearing him argue with himself is hilarious, and his physical performances when Venom first goes in him is a lot of fun. I honestly feel like Tom Hardy was hammered throughout the first half, because the second half is definitely steps up in terms of depth and charisma, and is single-handedly taking the reins of what is a half-sunk ship. Michelle Williams is very hit and miss, with some scenes being almost robotic, but then others featuring her doing more to bring life out of this poorly written character, which is effectively just another love interest for the hero character, and their chemistry with Hardy is solid. As for Riz Ahmed, I like him as an actor, but he does nothing for me in this, and the performance is just very one note. Granted, he is given very little to do, but he never tries to bring more to the character, which really hinders him as a memorable factor in the film. Aside from one scene interacting with a child, there is very little showreel material for Riz Ahmed here. Overall, Venom is a mess, but despite that, I hope it succeeds enough to get a sequel. Sony have made a big mistake and played it too safe with this, and I can only hope that they were taking it easy to see how the film does commercially before they can pull the trigger and go all out on a sequel. But the decision to play it safe has alienated any budding viewer, and with the negative reception this is currently getting, it's most likely going to backfire on them big time. Tom Hardy tried so hard to make this good, and if we are just talking about Venom himself, it's great, but everything around him is just a jumbled mess. I unfortunately have to brand Venom a lukewarm cup of tea. So Venom, have you seen it? Did you enjoy? Let's discuss down in the comments below. Hit the round subscribe button for more reviews coming all the time. This is that Spikehead Podcast, signing.